So, yeah, I wanted to talk about charisma today. And, because a lot of our podcast is around communication and being human. But I've been reading some books and listening to some podcasts that have given me further conviction that the majority of our communication isn't all in the words that we use. In fact, most of it is in cues. Yeah. So there was this podcast that I listened to from the Diary of a CEO. Basically, you can call it like a body language professional expert. Her name was Vanessa Van Edwards. And I listened to the thing twice because it blew me away. So many of her statistics and frameworks. And I wanted to bring it to our audience a little bit and talk with you about it. And there's an exercise that you did for me before this podcast that once at some point we'll dig into it, which will be interesting.
That was the hardest homework since like high school calculus for me. That was a difficult.
So just teaser, there were 6 faces that I had you rate, and you almost got half.
Oh, sick. That's good. That's better than I did in high school calculus.
Yeah. Don't get me started on calculus, man. I think I cheated my way through that in college. So the whole argument behind this, and I completely agree, is that successful people speak a secret language, the secret language of cues. So do you know what a cue is? But without being prompted, do you know? Could you like define what a cue is for me?
I don't think I'm going to do this well, but when I think of a cue, I think of like a simple, almost subtle way to explain a thing that's easy for your mind to grok and understand. So the example that I have is like if you're teaching somebody to do a dumbbell row or a cable row, which is basically like you pull back like this. What you want to do is you want to like pull your shoulders back and down and pull your shoulder blades together. Well, like not many people know how to actually express their body in that way from that direction. And so instead you use a cue. Imagine there's a pencil in the middle of your back and you're pinching it together. And so like that's the cue to trigger the right movement.
Yeah, it's essentially either like verbal or non-verbal behavior that indicate and prime the person on the other end to be receptive to whatever you're about to say. So yeah, pretty much. So like the argument is, and the hypothesis, and this is all backed up with science, is that if you want to be super successful and be considered somebody with high EQ and excellent communicator and influencer, you need to be able to identify and label other people's cues, as well as be aware and give off the right cues to others as you're talking, so that you're not setting off like these unknown communications that is completely counterproductive that you want to get across. Like even me going through that definition, I feel like I was not giving the right cues. But like the idea is 82% of the impressions that we make on other people can be defined by signaling the right warmth and competence. So 82% of your job when you're communicating with other people is to be able to signal the right level of warmth and the right level of confidence. So if you can signal both of these, you have the rest of it is 18% of your words, and you're already on the track to being charismatic.
When you say signal, you mean non-verbally, like how you present yourself, how you look, and that kind of stuff?
So a cue could be verbal. A cue could also be non-verbal. So that's why, like, when I first started thinking about this podcast, I was like, oh, this is going to be a podcast about body language. But there are cues in the way that we speak as well, which we'll get into a little bit, and we'll like crack some of this together. But a cue is essentially like making it easy and pleasant for the other person to follow along, and to emphasize and highlight the right parts of what you're saying, so that it's like a pleasure to listen to. If I talked like this the entire time I was describing you're already sleeping, right?
Sure.
So we do this naturally, and this comes with experience too. Like when I talk, I'll speak certain things fast, and then I'll slow down at the important parts. Like that's a cue, right?
Yeah.
Just in the inflection and the tone and the speech in which, or the speed in which I speak. Those are cute.
I like how started the conversation as well. Like the goal is to be charismatic. I think charisma is the outcome that you're looking for. I just researched the definition quickly. Compelling attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion in others. I think that's great. And that's a really high leverage skill in work and in life. I also think that there is a weird, I've seen like a little bit of a weird pushback on in books and in social around charisma being like, don't be misled by like the charismatic person. They're not always the smartest one in the room. Fair. Fact and fair. I would think about charisma as a tool in your toolkit, not the only one. If you're charismatic and you have no subject matter expertise, then I shouldn't listen to you. That's like all that social media is a bunch of, fake charismatic people. But I do think trying to be charismatic and learning how to be more charismatic and more effective as a charismatic leader can be quite beneficial for you.
Absolutely. I would say there are charismatic people with no competence out there, but I don't think there are any super smart, competent people without some sort of people skills that are going to make it. I really think that you need both, right? But if you're charismatic, most of the job is done for you. So I think the people that come out on social media and say, be wary of the charismatic person, is somebody that's competent that's struggling with the charisma part. Probably. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you should have both. It just makes everything easier. If I have a message that I want to get across, if I'm charismatic in the process, if I have the right level of warmth and competence, everything is so much smoother. And I think that's what we want to the message that we want to get across today is, first of all, what the hell is warmth and what is competence? Because we have to start there. The definition in the podcast that Vanessa Van Edwards gives is there are 3 characteristics of being warm. You are trustworthy, you're likable, and you have a certain level of friendliness about you. You're willing to be outgoing. There was a study that she referenced that in high school, they looked at all of the popular kids in the school, and they were trying to boil down the science, the formula of what makes somebody popular, what makes somebody likable. Do you know what that thing is?
That you're on the football team.
So there are different types of popular, right? There's the football jock, there's the cheerleader, there's the outgoing. The one thing that they had all in common when they gave the surveys is that there was a question that they had where they asked, can you list all the people that you like? They found that the popular kids had the longest lists of people that they liked, which the conclusion that they reached from that was, if you want to be likable, if you want to be considered friendly, you have to be the one to lead with the cues of I like you person on the other end. And then in mirroring, they will tend to like you back because you're giving them the sense of, oh, you like me? Well, then I like you. The opposite is, I don't want to talk to you. I'm shy or I just don't want to interact. You're giving off the cues to the people that, oh, something about you don't like me. Well, I don't like you either.
That's interesting. What a perfect little microcosm for life, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
kind of paying it forward and pushing, like caring and giving before receiving. How, I wonder, does that map to like? And I'm just stuck on the popular thing now. Is the person who is too cool for school, doesn't give a shit, and like they're popular because they're cool. I guess there's a difference between cool and popular. Maybe that's why. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the James Dean kind of archetype.
Yeah. Well, there's popular because there's a sense of mystery and like, wow, that person, it gives off a sort of an image or an archetype. But popular is like everybody knows you and likes you, and is like kind of the definition of popular in my mind.
Yeah. I can see how they're a little different. Like popular and cool are different.
So like if you're listening and you're like, I'm not sure if I am warm. If you're ever told that when somebody talks to you, you're intimidating, you're hard to talk to or hard to approach, you're cold, or people tend to hold back information when they're talking with you or interacting with you, that's a signal that you should probably dial up more warmth cues when you're talking with other people. Have you ever been told any of those things?
No, that's what I was going to ask is like, who's really going to tell you that?
Feedback from other people, maybe like intimidating. I don't know if like, hey, Sam, you're intimidating. Like, I don't think you're ever going to get directly, but you can have an idea if people aren't like, there are people that are approachable. Are you being approached? Are you the person that in a crowd, it's somebody will open up to you and start talking? I think you probably do. You probably have people that do that.
Maybe I'm blank at this one because I don't know. I probably overcorrect on the warmth thing. Like, but I know people at work or that I've worked with that know objectively they put off like a resting bitch face vibe, or they're terse and short with people, and they know it. They're like, oh, I know this is a problem, but like I do it anyway. And so they've probably gotten that feedback, but they don't really do anything about it. You know, they know it's a weakness, but it's like it's just one of those weaknesses that's left unaddressed.
So I'll give you an idea. It's like, so for me, I have to dial up my warmth cues sometimes because my resting bitch face is one of frustration or annoyance. And the reason why that is because if you look at, I'm going to make no facial expression. My lips I have very small lips. What that looks like is that like if I had like a U shape right here, my resting bitch face, people would think I'm either tired or sad. But because my lips are small and they go across, they look like they're always perched or like this. And they call this right here, they call this hood. So because I have a hood and I'm like this, people will come into a meeting and they're like, is something on your mind? Are you upset about something? They'll never say, oh my God, you look sad or tired. Like it's always, Derek, you look annoyed right now.
That's so interesting. So what you're saying is like we're kind of victims to our own biology in a way for the cues that we put off naturally. There's nothing that you're doing or not a specific thing you're feeling. It's literally the size of your lips and how big your how big your hood is, which is like the meat over your eyes.
The eyebrow right here, like whatever hangs over your eyes. Yeah, that's the hood. Yeah. And sometimes this, like these wrinkles right here.
Yeah, my wife is trying to desperately get rid of those.
It shows, the I don't even know how to describe to the listener, but like it's the between your eyes, that little thing. And that's why like old people have like a bad rap of, oh my God, he always looks angry, because whatever your default expressions are right now at your age, they're only going to get more crystallized as you get older because of the wrinkles and the facial expressions that set in. So like, we got to be careful of that when we get older. We're going to have these freaking things like this, and they're going to be like, oh my God, there's bah humbug missing over there.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's wild. Okay.
All right. So that's warmth, right? That's warmth. Competence. Competence is the combination of power, being reliable, and your capability. So those three things make up the definition of competence. So if you're wondering, hey, am I lacking in confidence? If you tend to be interrupted a lot, people don't tend to take you too seriously when you talk, and they're like, oh, there's Derek joking around again, even though you're being serious. Or if somebody meets you, or if you have this happen to you a lot, where people meet you and then they forget that they met you the next time that they see you, those are indicators that you need to dial up your competence cues.
Hey there, real quick. Can you do us a quick favor and hit the subscribe button down there somewhere? As a new and growing pod, subscribes are really, really important for us, for people to find us. We do this for free to provide you value in your work and in your life. And if you could just do this one thing for us, it would really help us to continue providing that value. So real quick subscribe, back to the video. Happy listening. Okay. This one resonates deeply. Like, especially Oh, we talk about getting into bigger rooms or pushing yourself into areas that you're less comfortable with or with more senior people. And I feel like this is something that I always grapple with is whenever I'm in one of those and I have a point to bring up, I'll start talking, I'll get interrupted, and it pisses me off. And I know it's part of the game, and you know what I mean? It's like someone has a thought formed already and they probably don't value mine that much. And so if there are any tools that I can use to address that, I am all ears, bro.
So maybe we start with those. So I have 5 competence cues. You can call these like your power moves that can dial up your competence. The first one is a hand gesture. I had never heard of this before, but it's called the steeple. Have you ever seen this? I mean, I'm basically making a triangle with my hand like this.
Your elbows are on the table, and
Yeah.
you're making a triangle with your hand, like
Yep.
connecting all your fingers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful. You don't want to do that. You don't want to move them because then that's the Simpson excellent evil, right? But if your hand's like a steeple, so your fingertips are connected, and you're almost got a little bit of width. That is a power. That's a power pose.
Okay. Is there any motion to it at all, or like okay,
Nope.
just
And you could almost do like you could spread your fingers across. You could also like put them together. I tend to in meetings. I feel like that's not a natural thing for me. So I will tend to like do this, which is it's not the full effect, but it's getting there. Which is like
so now
putting
you're,
your
you're interlacing your fingers.
interlacing my fingers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the science is between like why we think this is powerful, but I'll listen to the experts on that one.
It almost like this is maybe going to sound douchey and a little bit biased towards men, but like it kind of makes your arms look bigger.
Well, yeah, right. Like it
You put your
spreads it
elbows
out
on the table, and it makes your shoulders and your arms look bigger. You almost look like a little more commanding in that pose than like if you were just slouching in your chair or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So the steeple. So another thing is another type of cue is posture. So if you wanted to dial up your power posture, you want to maximize the distance between your ears and your shoulders. So if I was talking to you like this the whole interview, and I was shrugging my shoulders and my shoulders were up against my ears like this. What is this giving you? What kind of expression or feelings does this make you feel? Do I look powerful to you?
No, you look like you're holding in a fart or something.
That's besides the point. But no, but I look like nervous, right? I look like I'm unsure of where I am right now. So
Yeah.
by like putting your shoulders back, sitting up straight, and maximizing the distance between my ears and my shoulders, we love that as people because like what it does is it shows that you're upright and you're confident in yourself. What you want to be careful of with any of these cues, you can go too far in one direction. You don't want to do this, which is like me like putting my head all the way up and then looking down. Because what that does is that actually signals that I think I'm superior to you. You don't want to look down on somebody. You want to have your head straight across, but shoulders back and down, and maximize the distance between your ear and your shoulder.
Yeah. Nasheen Chen, who we had on the podcast, she has a lot of great content around this for remote work and camera placement. And it's quite simple. It's like, yeah, if you have a lot of people have their cameras either like too high or too low. And if too low, to your point, you're looking down, which is basically like I'm a superior to you. That's
yeah, like have you see people on a camera that are like this, like
yeah.
That's terrible.
It's very uncomfortable to like talk to somebody like that, especially one-on-one. Like very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So that's a great point. Like be careful of where your camera is, and sometimes like people are too close. We'll get into it, but there's this idea of like proxemic zones, like the proximity in which there are different levels. There's like intimacy versus not. You don't want to have your camera too close because that indirectly, accidentally signals to the other person that you're trying to get into their intimate zone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm like, I find myself like I'm sitting up like way straighter now. Like, I'm just waiting for the moment to make a point, put my fingers together.
So right now we're compounding this, right? So you got your steeple, you're maximizing the distance between your ears and your shoulders. The next thing is more behavioral. Some of the most bullshit advice that I've heard from body language expert is to always make eye contact with the other person on the other end. That's not what we want to do. Actually, what we want is we want to be talking and looking off and actually getting our point across. But whenever we end what we're about to say, we make our eye contact with the other person at the end of what we're saying. That indicates competence. It's like I'm off like thinking about what I'm about to say, and I'm out here and I'm describing everything, and now I'm about to wrap it up. And that's when I bring my eyes back to you.
That's freeing because I definitely feel like I look around a lot when I think. And sometimes when I'm in the middle of a thought, and I like to look to the side. I don't know why. But sometimes when I'm in the middle of a thought, I'll distract myself and I'll have a moment of like, dude, get back to the camera. Like they're probably uncomfortable right now that you're doing that. But what you're saying is that's not as big a concern.
No, it's a good thing. It shows that you're thinking about it, and you're also probably while you're doing that, you're gesturing with your hands. People love to see like the palms of your hands because it indicates that I could trust you. Because like, hey, I'm a friend. I'm a friend. My hands are here. So as you're talking, gestures mean a lot of things as well. But so you can use eye contact at the end of the sentence when you're talking, or the reverse of that is when somebody else is talking and they're saying something really important, make sure you're looking at them. Like lock eyes with the person that is saying something important. Because then it shows, oh, they're engaged in this conversation, and this is like an important part of what I have to say. So then you're mirroring to them that I'm following you, you know? And along those lines, if you can add some nodding, Now, not too fast. That's the other thing. Like all these cues, you can go too far. If there's a science that she calls out, it's like 3 nods is perfect. If you go any more than that, you're indicating, shut the fuck up, wrap it up. So have you ever been on a call where somebody just won't fucking stop talking, and you're just like, If anybody's ever doing that to you, they want you to like wrap it up.
Interesting. Yeah. I find nods very encouraging when I'm speaking to a group. When I make a point and I see the nods, I often take that as like a good signal, and it's encouraging, and I build confidence and keep going. One thing that bothers me is, and this maybe is crossing over into too much, is a lot of people actually say and maybe again, I think there's a balance there as well. Some people say it way too often. Like the entire time you're talking, yep, yep, yep,
Well, because you're doing it too much, right? You're inadvertently signaling to the other person when you're doing that, or somebody's signaling to you, time to wrap it up.
Time to wrap it up, or I already know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm there, man. Everything you've said, yep, I know it.
Yeah, I get it. Right? It's so frustrating.
And yeah, so that's the third thing. Eye contact is really important, but in the right moments. You don't want to be like the chronic eye contact person, because then you're going to be the creep, right? If you can make eye contact and use this facial cue at the same time, they call it the lower lid flex. Have you ever heard this term?
Yeah, I haven't, but I hope it's whatever you just did with your eyebrow just then, which I don't think I'm capable of doing. Yeah.
I have a very expressive face.
You have like,
but you've seen Zoolander.
You can express them like individually.
Yeah,
like Jim Carrey can do like the wave with his eyebrows. It's fucking nuts.
I can't do my right side. I can do my left, but I can't do my right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'll say you got great control.
So if you can make eye contact and then add on the lower lid flex, essentially what the lower lid flex is you've seen the movie Zoolander. It's the blue steel. Because so the idea behind this, and this is, out of all of the things, this is the one that I'm trying to like justify, I'm trying to figure out if this is actually this is something that I want to adopt or not. But the idea is, if you're squinting out into the distance, or if you're trying to make out something in the distance, the natural thing to do is to squint, because like that's what we do. Like, oh, something, I'm trying to make out what that says. So when you do that to somebody else, when they're talking, that shows in the key moments that you're really locked in. Whatever you're saying right now is the most important, most interesting thing to me, because I'm here.
Yeah, you got it, and it's something deeply resonated with you. I remember once, I remember this specifically during an interview that I was giving. And at the end of the interview, the candidate was asking me questions, and they were really good, really qualified, super experienced, worked at a lot of really great companies, never in crypto though. And so she was like, why should I care about crypto? And I gave her this, I thought it was a pretty damn good pitch on stable coins and crypto and stuff. And I remember her dropping that face. She's like, thank you. Like, thank you for that. Just like really, really briefly, like
this, right? Like, look at me like,
wow. Yeah. So subtle. Like, wow. Like that was really, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. I never thought about it like that.
That was almost a year ago, dude. And I remember it still, you know? So that made an impact on me as the recipient of that.
Yeah. So do the blue steel without the cheek thing.
I was going to say, yeah, that I'm just going to start like blue stealing people at work. That's no good.
So you don't want to do the whole time, because then they're like going to be like, hey, are you okay? You know? So it's like at the times that somebody's saying something really important, and don't be inauthentic if it's, you don't want to just bullshit this stuff, but you want to signal that you're engaged, especially if it's somebody senior to you, then you're trying to get, people want to see you as equals. They don't want to see you as submissive. But so there's this balance that you have to play between. The fifth thing on the power Q metric is vocal. And this is how you end your sentences. If I end my sentence like a question, and everything that I say goes up at the end, even though it's not a question, people are they're gonna like immediately question, why did he ask that like a question? Because this is actually something that liars do as well. Like, one of the ways that you could tell if somebody's lying is if they have that upward inflection. However, if I come at you and I say, Sam, the presentation that we did is finally ready to present. I didn't say the presentation is ready to present. Like, are you sure the presentation's ready? So the inflection of the way that you end your sentences at the end of one of the statements that you're saying is key to like conveying competence.
The first way you said it, you like dropped into the end of the sentence and it felt very final. The second way you said, I've never heard anyone say something like that. I'm trying to think of like a real example of people who end with an upward inflection. Because I
think people that tend to like over index on warmth do this because they're a little unsure and they want the other people to like them. So it's like they're saying a statement, but they're like leaving an opening for others to chime in because they don't want to be too final and then have it go against the group. So and that's at least the example that Vanessa gave in the podcast. Like, if a lot of women have this problem where when they're like talking, like, do you want to go to the market, right? Or I don't know, guys. What do you? I don't even know. Like, I'm not gonna pretend to do a girl voice for too long because that's annoying. But
so we have a launch planned for the end of May, and at the end of May, we're thinking about launching programmable wallets, and with that stack, we're going to go for developers as the target customers.
Yeah. See, that doesn't convey confidence.
It doesn't sound very confident.
No,
but
doesn't sound confident.
It's like you're trying to have like pace and be a little more matter of fact. Like, this is this, and this is this, and this is this, almost like you're reading off of a list. But yeah, I can totally see how being the recipient of that, it doesn't sound confident at all. Whereas, let me try to do it again. we're going to do a launch at the end of May. We're going to launch the programmable wallets stack. And we think that we want to target developers for the launch.
Yeah. Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it doesn't like we're the way that we're doing is a little bit exaggerated. Like a lot of this stuff is more nuanced and micro than the examples that we're saying. But I would say if you want to get your point across, you could exaggerate your downward inflection. You don't want to like go a high, but if you want to just focus on one part of that is the lower your voice gets on the last part of your statement, it's going to convey a much more confident and sure person than the alternative. Even if it's neutral, you want to go lower.
How many people do you know that you think actually focus on this level of nuance in how they communicate?
Not many. And what my conviction in that answer is through experience with listening to the C-level people talk and present on a quarterly basis.
Right. I agree. I think it's much more natural and organic, and it comes through emulation most of the time. But I wonder, because I'm thinking about all of the great communicators that I know. I have a list of 5 or 6 of them in my head. And if any of them have gone through this level of like fine-tooth combing the way that they speak. And my assumption is probably not. They probably did the same thing. They probably just emulated people who they resonated with and stuff.
Some people have the natural talent, or they just picked it up naturally. But I think part of this is there's a question that's like, can charisma be taught? And I think a lot of people have a false truth, the story that they tell themselves that no, in fact, it can't be taught, and people are lucky if they were born with this talent. But no, in fact, there are studies that show there are frameworks that you can implement in your day to day, and it's going to be a journey like anything else. If this seems like a lot of work, you don't need to focus on the entire thing right away. Focus on one thing. Focus on your posture. Focus on the inflection of your voice when you're giving a presentation. Like, could be one thing. Once you master that, move on to the next. Half the battle with these things is typically in the awareness of what it is. And that's half the battle.
Yeah, it's thinking about the way that you communicate as just this machine, and you're just tightening knobs and you're optimizing things, and you're taking out a rusty piece and you're adding in a brand new one that's more efficient, and just over the years you're just making all of these little incremental optimizations, and the machine just keeps getting better and more effective with higher output over time. And that's kind of the goal here. And if you really think about it, back to the question that I posed, was all of those great communicators, they were doing the same shit. They were doing the exact same thing. They were tuning their machine over time, but they were doing it organically,
more intuitively. Yeah.
And more intuitively. And sure, like, I think what we're both saying is you can do that too. That's not a bad thing to do at all. But hey, for people who learn a different way, or maybe like if you want to analyze yourself through a different lens and how you communicate through a different lens, here's like, look at this laundry list of things. I'm just, like, my mind is racing right now on like all the times that I was interrupted, and if I had an upward inflection in my voice when I was talking, so yeah, you've given me a lot of inspiration here.
So now the 5 warmth cues. So we've talked about one of them already, and that's the triple nod. If you are in a conversation and somebody's talking, I think too many is not good either. But if you give a slow and steady nodding along, you talked about it too. Like, that's a good indicator that you're resonating with others when you're talking to. So that's the first one. The second one I hadn't heard before, but head tilt. So have you've seen a dog before when they're interested in something, they do like the head tilt to the side, like, huh?
There are great YouTube montages for that. And like there's YouTube, this is a total tangent. There's like a YouTube channel. There's a YouTube channel, dude, if you have a dog, where like it's sounds that make dogs heads tilt. And you can there's like just a string of these sounds and you just put it on the YouTube and then the dog will tilt their head and it's the funniest thing. Like you can like cue them to do it.
And the evolution behind that is that when we head tilt, we're exposing our ear.
Okay.
So it indicates, it signals to the other person that we're really listening. We're really engaged here. But you don't, but you want to like, yeah. And you don't want to like, and by the way, you can't mix nodding and head tilting in the same thing. You're going to have to pick one for the right moment because you can't tell. That just looks freaking weird, dude. But so the interesting part of the head tilt that I found is that there are studies that show that if you have bad news to deliver, if you do it with a slight head tilt, the person on the other end will view you as more empathetic after giving that bad news.
Okay. Interesting. The whole time you're delivering it or like slightly?
I don't know if any of these are final. I just think that it's interesting, like interesting part. I'm not going to just sit there and break my neck while I'm giving like a minute thing, but like at the important parts, if to highlight that you care and you're empathetic, if you just give a little head tilt at those times.
Hey, I know as an engineer, you worked on this project for 6 months, but we're going to kill it. I'm sorry you wasted the last 6 months in doing it. Yeah.
You didn't give a head tilt though.
Oh, I thought I was a little tilted. Do you need to show the variation? Like, hey, I know as an engineer, you worked on this last thing for like the last 6 months and da 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 da, you know?
Yeah, so like this is me straight on. Don't I seem a little bit more like I care right now?
Yes, for sure.
Third thing, authentic smile. Let me see your smile.
I'm uncomfortable.
But that's a real smile because you're laughing uncomfortably. So it's all in the cheekbones. So one framework that she gives is if you don't know how to smile, if you want to test what it actually look like or feel like, is put your finger in between your teeth and now smile as big as you can.
Okay.
So you don't want to bring up your cheekbones. I'm very blessed with big cheekbones, so this is easy for me.
Cheekbones. Okay.
Yeah. Fourth thing, leaning forward, either as the speaker or the listener. We've seen this, right? All of a sudden, somebody you say something and somebody leans in like, "Ooh, say more," right? You could do the same thing. That you don't want to be leaning in the entire time because then like that's awkward. But if you're highlighting a specific part, like a very important message, and at that moment you lean in, ooh, and if you could do that with some lower inflection as well, like we talked about before, people, it's gonna come across a lot more. In fact, when you lean forward, like the most charismatic people that are the most likable, they're always trying to bridge the intimacy zone. Meaning, so like right now, the way that we're talking, we're in it's considered the social zone. The intimate zone is up to 3 feet around us. What charismatic people do is at key moments of trying to connect, they'll lean in and give even like a soft touch or something like that, and then come back to their zone. Because while I don't want to get too much into your intimate zone, I don't want to live there. But at key moments, I'm gonna come into your intimate zone and make a connection and retreat back.
That's cool. My quick story on that is that my grandfather and my uncle, both were the kind of the same dude. My uncle, they're both like Italian mobster guys, basically. They're not like actual criminals, but they live in this small town in Vermont. Everybody in the town knows them, and everyone thinks that they're best friends with them. They're like definition of charismatic. They're the type of guy that's just walking down the street, hey, yo, Bobby, Frankie, tell me whatever, right? And they both do this thing. Well, my grandfather passed away, but like my uncle does this thing now where you're talking to him and he's chatting and stuff. And when he makes a point, he'll like, before he makes the point, he'll be like, listen to this, listen to this. Listen to what I told him. And he'll lean in and he'll tug on your shirt. He'll lean in. He's listen to this. Listen to what I told him. Yeah, and it's the funniest shit, dude. It's like, this is exactly what you're saying. When you do that, you're like, you feel yourself being like, what is it?
Yeah.
Getting like excited about it. It's awesome. It's not invasive or weird.
So like every one of these cues, it can go too far. If you lean too far forward, it could indicate bowing and a sign of submission. So there's this perfect balance. Again, there's this, even with like getting chicks or, picking up girls or whatever, you want to be very mindful of how much you lean in, because nobody likes to be looked at as, greater than. Everybody wants to communicate and talk with people as equals. So the same thing happens with dating, right? So leaning in temporarily is a great way to connect. But if you stay the whole conversation up in their intimate zone,
get out of my face.
Whoa, dude. Clinger, stage 5, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So there's like, it's funny because there's like the up down, right? If I'm looking down at you or I'm looking up at you, that's no good. I want to be on an equal plane. And then also there's the in out.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot to keep in mind, right? If you don't have this natural, like you're learning from square one and you're almost like discouraged from the get-go.
It almost feels a little bit overwhelming, but now also I know myself.
You're aware. Yeah.
Next time I'm in a conversation with someone that's not you, I'm going to be thinking.
You know what's interesting? I listened to this podcast, I think the middle of last week. I'm already noticing in others some of these things. Who's too warm but could dial up their competence? Who's too but they're ice cold robots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the inflection, like this one guy. So you were looking for an example. There's this one manager that I work with. I'm not going to name any names, but I've always thought that he was the most warm person, but like I've always had a question about like competence. And I realized that he does the upward inflection thing all the time.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I was like, oh wow, because like you have a feeling like a gut instinct about people, but you can't label why. So the 5th warmth cue is called open body, open mind. So this is a very simple one. Essentially, like right now, you're a little bit closed off. You got your arms folded. What this one says is you want to be as open, removing as much of the objects and the like the crossing of the arms as you can to indicate I'm open. And this could even be with your feet too. Like I know we're just sitting on a webcam, but if I was talking with you standing, I'd want to have a little bit of an open stance with you to show like towards the larger part of the room to show I'm open. I'm here with you, but I'm open.
I feel like most of the time, meetings that are happening in person, they're sitting. And so when I think about this, if we're sitting across a table from one another, then a lot of the things we talked about applied.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you, I feel like what most people do when they sit is they cross their legs, right? It's like this or something like that.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, it relaxes me to do that. I don't know. Do you have in your whole framework?
So I do this. I like kind of have a little bit of a lean.
Yeah, I can't see your legs, but are you doing the old man kind of cross your leg all the way over thing? Yeah. Okay. So crossing legs is okay?
I don't really know. Maybe something to investigate after. I didn't. That part was a little bit like a footnote in the episode.
Cool.
Yeah. Personally, I resonated much more with the competence cues than I did with the warmth, because I think I'm naturally like I have the smile, I bring in the energy with folks, and that's never been something that I've had an issue with. Like, in fact, sometimes people I've had a reputation of being always positive, always in a good mood. That sometimes on days that I'm not feeling it, if I just have my resting bitch face, people are like, "Oh, he's annoyed."
What's wrong with Derek?
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Yeah.
Definitely me too.
Yeah.
Sam, you're off today. It's like, I'm just not.
I'm
not carrying the conversation. I'm not joking. I'm not smiling. I'm just neutral. And that's off to you,
Yeah.
you know? Which
Yeah. So before this pod, I gave you a picture with 6 different resting facial expressions from the same person. I asked you to try to label the emotions of each and to tell me why. So, first of all, tell me, what did you think about it? Was it harder or just as easy or just as hard or?
it was super hard. It was really hard. I had a hard time coming up with the right like name of the emotion. I almost had a easier time thinking about the situation. Like the A, for example, the one we're looking at, A. It was so clear to me that was like that moment in the movies, you know, where somebody says something wrong or out of place and the other person shoots them a glance and it's like, hey, shut up. You know, like, and their eyes are like seething. I don't remember what emotion I put for that.
You put contempt.
Yeah. So
for A, you put contempt.
Yeah. Is that right or wrong?
That is actually wrong.
Okay.
Well, at least from the perspective of the screen I grabbed this from, this one indicates fear, and the reason why is because the upper eyelids are raised. So they say that when the upper eyelids are raised,
Yeah.
indicates fear.
Okay.
So the second one, you said disgusted, and you were right.
Bang.
Do you know what? You were right. So the reason why, and then your comment was, "Ew, why did you do that?" Kind of like this is what she's thinking.
Yeah. Like why?
It's because of the nose crinkle. And you know what's fascinating about the science behind that is that when you're disgusted, what's that?
Because it smells.
Yeah, when you're disgusted, even though it's not like you're not smelling something bad, your biology, your nasal cavities want to close because you don't prefer that. So,
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So like that's interesting, and maybe that's the reason why like bullshit is such a popular term. It's like I smell bullshit, and that's just basically
I smell bullshit.
It disgusts me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Or it's like, man, bullshit. I smell bullshit.
All right.
C, you put courageous, like about to fuck shit up.
I thought about this is the face that I would make before going out on like the basketball court.
Actually, if I did this, what do you think?
More like skeptical or
anger, and that's because her jaw is brought forward.
Okay.
So if you have an underbite, be careful because people might think that you're angry a lot.
Okay. That one does make sense. I'm thinking of people that have been very angry in recent past, and I can see how like their
So D, you were spot on. You said annoyed. The actual the way the website said was determination/anger, and that's because of the lips being pressed. I would say annoyed also works because this is part of my resting. I've been called out like, hey, are you annoyed or upset because of the lip pressing?
Uh-huh.
So if you have bird lips like me, be careful.
Okay.
E, you said bored. It's actually sadness because the eyes are drawn up.
The eyes are drawn up.
Yeah. So like, whereas in the first one, it's fear because the upper eyelids are raised. Like this is A. In E, it's more like.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the F is also sadness, which is what you put.
Oh, trick question.
Tricky. And that's because of the U. So
that
like,
one made sense because her like cheeks were dropped down like this on the sides of her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I'm trying to make a sad face, right, I'm doing that. Plus I'm like raise my eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
You know.
So the purpose of this whole thing was like understanding, is it interpreting the
Understanding,
emotion of someone
matching
else?
emotions, yeah, like matching emotions to the cue that makes you label it as such.
What do you mean?
So each, like all the reasons that we talked through of like why this is fear,
Crinkle and
why F
nose,
is
yeah.
sadness, there are certain facial cues that trigger that emotion in us of why, like what they're feeling. So a lot of times we look at somebody and we intuitively know, because we're biologically programmed to understand and read faces and why, like what people are feeling. But we very often, or we hardly ever often, like label what it is about their face that makes us feel like they're having that emotion.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So you can be a more accurate read of other folks' emotions, and also
Yeah,
maybe
and
be more
like
aware of like the emotions you're portraying to other people by how you're expressing your
yeah,
face.
like I think for me, the most useful part of this exercise is to look at myself in the mirror without any emotion or expression, and to say, okay, what's going on with my mouth? What's going on? Do I have any like certain wrinkles, or like what's the placement of my eyes? And then try to say, okay, well, what emotions correspond with what my resting expressions are? And then it can give you an idea of, and you probably can actually get experience or retrieve insight by just thinking about what people say about you when you have your resting face on. You know, I know that I've had many situations where people think I'm upset when I'm really not.
Well, yeah, that was. Did you see that thing that I sent you today?
I
Uh,
didn't see the post. No.
I think we've talked about in previous episodes around public speaking or communication in general. One of the best ways to gather data about this, sure, like asking people, but really doing an audit of yourself and how you communicate, and how podcasting has been a great exercise in that space for you and I, because every week we do this and then we listen to ourselves back and listen to how many filler words we have. And so this guy had an awesome exercise to do with yourself, which is record yourself communicating, either maybe in a meeting where you talk a lot or where you're doing a presentation, get a recording and do three things. First thing, turn off the sound and watch it. And watch how you move. Watch how you the inflections in your body language, your face. See how engaging you are without any sound. Second one, turn on the sound, turn off the video. So then just listen to yourself speaking. And that is listening to all of the like what you're portraying when you're talking, the words you're using, the inflections in your voice, the words you're using in terms of like likes and ums. Don't cut any of that shit out. Listen to all of it. And then the third one is turn the video off and the sound off and get the transcription. And the transcription, then read it and read it in prose and see if how you're connecting ideas together in written form is actually making sense. So it's like one video, one whatever, one recorded meeting, three different ways to look at it and audit yourself and how you communicate. I thought that was so cool. I want to try that.
I like it. I like it. And that's a good way of getting started with watching yourself to begin with, because sometimes watching yourself and listening at the same time is a little bit overwhelming because you're very self-critical. If you start with one or the other, you know, if you just turn the sound off and watch your expressions only, that might be a good way of getting started with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very uncomfortable thing to do.
It is. Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable, but
Yeah. One other thing too, because I think handshaking is everybody hates an awkward handshake. We've all hugged somebody, and then as you're doing, you're like, "Oh, this isn't good for me or you, is it?" And that's not nice. Or like the scenario where they wanted a handshake, you wanted a hug, or you wanted a fist bump and they wanted a handshake. So how do you like take away some of that awkwardness and make it easy for both you and the person receiving it? Well, you just signal it from far away. If you know you're coming into a meeting and it's professional, I think the safest thing to do is just go in for the handshake. But about 10 feet from, as we're approaching each other, thumb up. Nice to see you, Sam. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just thinking.
And they say 3 pumps,
like 50 feet away.
3 pumps. Hey, play it. Shake it once. That's okay. Shake it twice. That's fine. What is it? Shake it 3 times. You're playing with yourself.
Yeah. Was that a Good Charlotte line?
I think Blink-182. Or no, is it Good Charlotte?
Good Charlotte.
Oh, Good Charlotte. Yeah.
What a drop.
No, so handshake. So like they say, bring it in from like far away, but thumb up is very important because you don't want to go on the side because people might think that you're going in for like a dap or a hug. So you want to have a thumb up to indicate this is a handshake. And you don't want to go either palm up or palm down because it indicates that either like if you go like this and like it's superior, if you go like palm up, then it's like weird. One thing I used to do in college, my freshman year, but I was called out on it and it changed my perspective on handshaking forever, was I would go in and I would handshake people to meet them and I would put my hand on top.
Yeah. A lot of people used to do that.
And one kid one time was like, dude, why do you do that? It's like an old man. And from then on, I stopped.
Yeah. It is kind of an old man-y thing to do. Right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know, almost like a priest.
My freshman year, I went through a stage where I felt like I needed to be more grown up all of a sudden because I was in college now. I got like these sweaters and the polos that went on top of it, like.
Oh, yeah. That was a look back in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, and my girlfriend at the time was like, dude, you dress like my dad. So a lot of lessons the hard way there.
Oh, that's great. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's it, man. That was a lot. So if you're feeling like you want to dial up your cues and your awareness, and listen to this a couple times. Make it a journey. Pick 1 or 2 things. You don't got to pick them all. Just pick 1 or 2 things.
Oh man, yeah. I'm gonna be analyzing now myself and other people through this endlessly. So thank you for that. Actually, thank you because I think it's gonna be fun. But my brain is already racing on all of this stuff.
And and like one thing I learned is like I was playing with my hood.
Oh, God. It's so creepy.
It's weird. I'm getting older. My skin is becoming less elastic now. All right, is that the pod?
Zip it up, zip it out.
All right, see you in a bit, or see you on another time. Samwise Kimchi.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us at The Workflow. If you like what you just heard, could you take 1 second and give us a like, subscribe, follow, or leave a review on the platform you're listening to this podcast? It will really help us out as we're growing the pod. We'd also love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future topics you'd like us to cover, folks you'd want us to chat with, or any feedback in general, just shoot us a note at workflowshow@gmail.com. Again, that's workflowshow@gmail.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.